All right, good evening, people. My name is Arvind, and I am from Crack Global. I'll be handling this webinar today. As you all know, this session is on certain strategies that we'll discuss, which will help you improve your score in quant, maybe beyond a 47. So this will be very useful for all of you whose quant scores have stagnated at, let's say, a 44 or a 45 or even a 46 or maybe even a 47, right? So some of the things that we'll discuss today are actually actionable items that you can go ahead and implement in your preparation from now on, right? That's how I wanted to keep this webinar. I wanted to give you things that you can actually go ahead and implement in your preparation from now on. So that's what I have kept in mind while designing the PowerPoint presentation for this webinar. So I'll just go ahead and start the slideshow. As the title says, this is a webinar on how to push your GMAT Quant Score beyond a 47. Why did we pick a number like 47? Because we feel that 47 is like the threshold that a lot of people sometimes fail to cross. And between 47 and 51, there are again so many people that find it hard to cross a certain number. So we felt 47 is like the threshold that a lot of people want to cross to get over to a 48 or a 49. And sometimes when you have a 48 and a 49 on quant, if you have a very good score on verbal, you can end up getting a 700 plus score, right? That's probably one of the reasons why we picked a 47. Being a math faculty, one more reason could be that 47 is a prime number, but that's on a lighter note. Jokes apart, we have seen a lot of students sometimes languishing in the 43 to 46 range, and they don't have any clue about what is happening, what is wrong with their approach, what is wrong with their preparation, and they really want to score that 48 or 49. That's essentially why we picked 47 as the number. Okay, so the agenda for today's session will be segments. The first segment being a 45-minute discussion on certain actionable items, as I said, which will help you probably cross over from this side of 47 to the other side of 47. And I've kept about 10 to 15 minutes for a QA session. That does not mean that you cannot ask me questions in the interim when the session is going on, but I'd like all of you to keep it to a minimum so that the flow is not interrupted. We don't have a lot of context switching to be done, right? So that's what I have for the agenda. So this is essentially going to be a 1 hour webinar, guys. I'll be wrapping it up before or exactly at 8:30, right? So I hope all of you have blocked your calendar for the next 1 hour. Just a quick peek of who we are as a company. We were founded in 2006. We have mentored, trained around 5,000 plus students, clocked in more than 1 million coaching hours, and we have students. Our students come from a number of countries across the globe. Our guiding principle, our founding philosophy has been to connect a student to somebody who loves teaching. And here I am because I love teaching. I love teaching math, to be specific about that. Quick peek into who I am. I am a mechanical engineer by qualification. Have been teaching aptitude, quant, reasoning for the last 14 years. That's because I primarily love teaching. I've taken multiple competitive exams. I've scored a perfect score in quant on GRE. I scored a 96, 97 percentile in quant on CAT more than once. That's a quick intro about me. Before we start off, there are a few free resources that we have in store for all of you who are there on this webinar today. And at this point of time, I would like to tell you all that I'm really feeling happy that I'm on this webinar. I'm getting to interact with all of you guys. We did a few sessions the last quarter, and doing these live sessions probably brings out the best in us. So I'm considering myself as fortunate as some of you are to be on this session. So thanks for being on the session. First of all, I will be giving out these free resources towards the end of the session. I'll be giving out the links. So hold on till then. Um, I've also included a slide which talks about the answer options for DS questions. I did this because in some of my previous sessions, there were a few people, there were a few persons who said, I do not exactly know what the options of a DS question are. So just play it safe, put in the options here. So at any point of time when we are solving a DS question, if any of you um, do not know the answer options, let me know. We can come back to this slide so that you can have a quick glance at the options. And because without knowing the options, solving a question is pointless, right? So that's the reason I put it here. And without further ado, I would like to start off on what we are all here for, right? And most of you who are on this webinar are here because you probably have something like this sentence on your mind. You know, really eating into your brains as to why you're not able to cross that 47 or 48 on GMAT Quant, right? That's probably the biggest question when it comes to your quant preparation. Whereas you may be doing well on verbal, but you seem to have hit a roadblock in terms of a GMAT quant score. You may have taken up a reputed GMAT course. You may have taken up courses from Manhattan or Veritas Prep or eGMAT or Crack Verbal. You may have exhausted hundreds of questions. You may have taken up a number of tests, a number of sectional tests on quant. You may have referred to a host of other resources along with the course that you've already taken up, right? Despite all this, your quant score always ranges between 43 to 46, even when you take up a mock test. And that's when you're probably tearing your hair out and asking yourself, okay, what do I do now? What is it that I do that I have to do to be able to cross this barrier? It's sometimes got to do with a mental mindset issue also, but I will not go there. There are other things other than the mindset that you can really work on, which will sort of nullify the mindset aspect and will help you cross over to the other side of 47, right? So do not worry. We have some actionable items that you can implement in your preparation. As we go ahead, you will come to know what they are, right? Um, so I thought it's a good idea to start with a simple quant question on ratios, right? So as always, I will probably have a 1 minute timer on this. So I want all of you to go ahead and solve this question. I'll give you a time of 1 minute, and after 1 minute, we'll go ahead and solve this question together, right? And see what are the learnings that we can derive out of this question. Go ahead, guys. 1 minute. Okay, people. So that's a minute. So a lot of times, um, the answer that I get on this question, a very common wrong answer I get on this question is option D. So I will start off by telling you guys that option D is one of the trap answers on this question. So if you did end up getting option D, I'm sorry guys, that answer is wrong. Now, what do I want to put across by making you solve this question? Now, when it comes to topics like ratios, percentages, arithmetic, topics like rates, time and distance, time and work, you have to remember that all these topics are concept based. You need to know certain concepts. You need to know the fundamentals, the basics, some advanced concepts. If you if you want to be able to solve any level of questions from these areas, right? Now, in this question, it's important that you know how to interpret a ratio like 5:3, right? Now, one approach you could have is you could say if K has 5x stamps, then Alberto would have 3x stamps. Now, why did I assume 5x and 3x? You have to remember that in a ratio question like this, a ratio of 5:3 does not always represent the actual values of the stamps. So it's not that K and Alberto have 5 and 3 stamps. So you have to remember that a ratio does not represent the actual value all the time. It's one of the fundamental concepts. And because a ratio does not represent the actual value all the time, you will have to bring in something called a multiplier, right? A multiplier is what would have been removed from the ratio. Another basic concept in a ratio problem is we remember that a ratio should always be simplified to the lowest extent, right? This is one more fundamental concept of ratios. So what happens is when you try to simplify a ratio to the lowest extent, you would have removed this multiplier. So when you're solving a ratio problem, the first step is to bring back the multiplier, right? Now, because the ratio given is 5:3, 5x and 3x. Now, let us look at the second statement. After K gave Alberto 10 of her stamps, which means 5x now becomes 5x minus 10 because K gave some stamps to Alberto. Whereas Alberto's number of stamps becomes 3x plus 10. So after this happened, the problem says the ratio became 7:5. A lot of people at this time, at this point in time, will take this as 7K by 5K. Remember that that is not required because the K will eventually get cancelled. So here you can still write it as 7 by 5, right? Now when I cross multiply, I have 5 into 5, 25x, 5 into 10, 50. 25x minus 50 is equal to 21x, 7 into 3 plus 70. So I have 25x minus 21x, that is 4x. 4x is equal to 120. X is equal to 30. Remember, x is a multiplier for the original ratio, right? So when you plug the 30 back here, you'll understand that K had 150 stamps originally and Alberto had 90 stamps. This is where people end up making the mistake of finding the difference between the two as 60 and marking D as the answer. That would be wrong. Because sometimes in a GMAT question, you'll have to pay attention to the details. The question says, as a result of this gift, so K gifted 10 stamps to Alberto. So 150 becomes 140 and 90 becomes 100. The question says, as a result of the gift, K had how many stamps more, right? So K had 40 stamps more after the gifting was done. So the correct answer here is B for Bravo. So what is it that I wanted to put across here? If you really want to, score well on quant, these are the kind of questions that you will get initially in the first 7 or 8 questions. The first 7 or 8 questions will look similar to the one here, and you cannot afford to slip up on these questions. And you will slip up on these questions if you're not strong with your fundamental concepts, right? So go ahead and strengthen your fundamental concepts. If there are areas like ratios, percents, profit and loss, interest, time and distance, time and work, where your concepts are weak, remember that these are not the areas where your concepts should be weak. These are areas where your concepts should be strong, right? Because beyond a certain stage, you cannot use logic here to solve the problem, right? These are not topics where logic can really help you solve the question fully, right? You need to know the concepts, all right? So that's exactly what I had in mind. The first thing you'll have to address is you'll have to be strong with the concepts. So, what do I mean by not strong with the concepts? This is what we have observed, right? We have observed that students who are unable to cross a 46 are not strong with all the concepts. Also, what do I mean by the second point? I'm telling that people who don't cross a 46 stick to conventional textbook approach of solving math questions. Now, a lot of times, uh, people who take up GMAT Quant tend to focus on the math part a lot, right? Forgetting the point that GMAT is also testing you on your reasoning skills, your logical skills, and that is where students fail to understand that the textbook approach of solving math questions is probably not the best approach in a quant question. Now, if you're wondering what I mean, you could have solved this question in a much quicker manner if you had taken values. So if had you taken K and Alberto to have 50 and 30, a quick question, why not 5 and 3? Because if you observe the answer options are fairly large numbers. And if I want the difference to be this big, I can't take 5 and 3, right? That's the reason why I took 50 and 30. So this is before. What is after? After would be 40 and 40. The question says after K gave Alberto, the ratio should be 7:5. This ratio is definitely not 7:5. So 50 and 30 is not possible. The next set of values could be 160. So K gave 10 stamps, so 90, 70. 90 and 70 are still not in the ratio of 7:5. Now 150, 90, 140, 100. 140 and 100 are definitely in the ratio of 7:5. I can very well find out the difference to be 40. And how much time did you think I took here? I probably took half the time that I took in solving the question using the conventional variable approach, right? So if you're someone who is uh, into solving math questions using the conventional variable approach, guys, there is absolutely no pride in that, right? There is absolutely nothing great about solving a quant question using the variable approach, right? Except that it probably gives you the satisfaction that, okay, I was able to frame equations and solve it, right? That's not the trade-off that you want. The trade-off that you want is, I was able to solve a question within, let's say, 45 seconds. Whereas if I had taken the conventional method, I would have probably taken 1.5 minutes. How much time did I save? I saved 45 seconds. Think about it. If you end up saving 30 seconds on 5 questions, you're giving yourself a minute and a half, right? You could utilize that in a hard question. And how did you save these 1.5 minutes? You did nothing really extraordinary. You just took a smart approach to calculating. Keep that in mind. So what's the learning? There are two learnings. One, you need to know the concepts. You need to know the basic concepts. If you did not understand what 5:3 is, you will not be able to take 50 and 30. As simple as that. And when you're solving GMAT questions, Get into GMAT mode, right? Don't be in school mode. I always use this terminology, right? Solving math questions using the textbook approach is school mode, according to me. Get into GMAT mode, plug in values, use smart methods, right? Don't stick to the conventional approach, tried and tested all the time. Save time. All right, people. So with this, let's go to the next question, people. So this is a data sufficiency question, and this is one of my personal favorites. Right? I will again go ahead and give you 1 minute. Please solve this, and after 1 minute, let's discuss the answers. All right, people. That's a minute. Okay, let me have a look at your answers, please. Okay, I see a C on this question. I see a D on this question, and I see a B for Bravo, C for Charlie. At least till now, C for Charlie seems to be the popular answer because at least two of you gave it. Okay, that seems to be all right. At least by the type of answers that I got, I can at least safely conclude that A is not an answer. Now, with a lengthy data sufficiency question like this, the trick is to understand that you have to leverage the question data. Remember that in a data sufficiency question, the question data is your most important data. Why? Why is the question data the most important? Because you can use it anywhere. Point number one. Point number two, it lets you uh, frame an equation or maybe an inequality, which will probably tell you what exactly you have to look for in the statements. So a lot of students find the data sufficiency questions, especially long data sufficiency questions, hard. That's primarily because they have this habit of jumping to the statements straight right after reading the question, right? Without utilizing what the question gives you, right? It's a little similar to what some people do on critical reasoning, right? Immediately after reading the stimulus and reading the question, they get onto the answer options sometimes, right? Very quickly, without spending enough time on the stimulus or the question step. So think about this. The question says the difference between Mary's and Jim's annual salaries. Point to note the term difference. Okay, the term difference, remember, always is the largest minus the smallest. Bear this in mind. So just because I say difference between Mary's and Jim's, it does not mean M minus J all the time. It can mean J minus M as well, right? I hope all of you are clear with this. So when you look at a phrase like the difference between Mary's and Jim's, resist the temptation of taking it as M minus J all the time. It could be J minus M as well. Similarly, the difference between Mary's and Kate's could be M minus K or K minus M. We don't know. When do we know? We come to know when we read the statement. What is the statement? If Mary's annual salary was the highest of the three people, so I know that Mary is more than Jim and Kate. So I know that it is not J minus M. I know that it is not K minus M. Now that I know this, let me frame an equation. The difference between Mary's and Jim's annual salaries was, remember that keywords like was, is, will be, would be always represents an equal to. Was twice, that is two times, the difference between Mary's and Kate's annual salaries. How does this help us? Let's try to simplify. M minus J equal to 2M minus 2K. Transposing terms, I have M is equal to 2K minus J. What am I trying to find out? I am trying to find out the average annual salary of the three people. How do I find the average annual salary? Average annual salary would be obviously the sum of all the salaries divided by 3. This is what I'm trying to find out. Let's plug in the value of M. M is 2K minus J plus J plus K. Divide by 3. 2K plus K is 3K. 3K by 3 is K. So essentially, what are we trying to find out? We are trying to find the value of K. But the question gives you the impression that you're supposed to find the average annual salary. Whereas in actual, you're trying to find the value of K. And where is the value of K given? Not here. The value of K is given here. And that's why the second statement is sufficient. Right? So this process that I did here, right? This entire thing that I did here is called breaking down the question data and the question stem. So in a data sufficiency question, right? It's very, very important for you to leverage the question data, create equations, and help it and take its help to synthesize the question stem, to break it down, right? And that's when you do that, right? When you synthesize the question stem, you will come to know exactly what to look for in the statements. Like for example, here you came to know that you have to look for the salary of Kate, and that made your job all the more simpler, right? More simpler is grammatically wrong, by the way. So typically, a student who faces this problem of crossing 46, 47 typically faces a lot of trouble in DS questions. And that's usually because he or she fails to break down the question stem and he or she does not take advantage of the question data. So I hope this question has given you an idea of how to use the question data to your advantage to help you break down the question stem, right? That's what you have to do. DS is your weak area. You have to make sure that you solve enough questions on DS and focus on getting to the right answer. At least during the initial stage, time should not be your concern, right? Even if you take 3 minutes on solving a DS question, your focus should be on getting the right answer. Because the more right answers you get, the the better your confidence will be on DS questions. And the moment you have confidence on your side, I have seen that students can even crack the most difficult questions. So it's a psychological game. So it's about at the start of your preparation at least, right? It's about creating that certain level of confidence which will keep you going even in the hard questions. So once you're confident, right? Even if you get a few questions wrong, you tell yourself, okay, so this wrong answer may have been because of a careless error or because of oversight, but I know that I can solve this question. That is where you have to get yourself to, right? And yeah, remember, question data is the most important data, right? And breaking down the question stem will help you solve that question all that faster, right? It'll save time. All right, people. So I hope that was useful for you. go ahead and implement this in your preparation if you have not already done this. Whenever you see a DS question from now on, whether the question stem is short or long or maybe somewhere in the middle, try to break down the question stem, right? Try to bring it down to a simpler question. Right, people. So, what is the next question? The next question I have is uh, again one of my personal favorites. This is a question on numbers. Go ahead. You have a time of 1 minute. Yeah, Marco. See, there will always be a comparison of speeds of solving, right? What you have to understand that you will not have this luxury of um, comparing which method is faster, right? So it's therefore better to have a certain technique, a consistency in your approach, so that you can go ahead with that approach and without having to worry that the approach will fail, right? Very often, what students get caught up between is which method do I pick. Never put yourself in that situation, right? Uh, Very often I get asked, so that's time, people. That's 1 minute. Very often I get asked, can this question be solved this way? The answer to that question will always be a yes. You can solve a math question in maybe 5 different ways. But the more important question that all of you have to ask yourself when you're practicing is, should I solve this question this way? Right? So the should question is more important than the can question. Right? Keep this in mind. So what is it that makes this problem interesting? It's the fact that there is some data given here uh, which says x is an integer. So this is your question data. So a lot of you might be questioning yourself, okay, but how does this make a difference? How does it make a difference in knowing that x is an integer? It does, because a lot of GMAT questions have this sort of a trick element where this data is given in the question, okay, and then the question goes on to ask you something about x square or x cube. And a lot of times students fail to see the connection between the two, right? Understand that if x is an integer, right? If x is an integer, remember that x square will be a perfect square. This is what the question wants you to understand, finally, right? But if you're not able to link these two, you will miss that link and you will end up trying random values. So remember, if x is an integer, x square will be a perfect square. Similarly, x cube will be a perfect cube. And this is a very familiar model that I've seen on GMAT questions, where the question says x is an integer, and in the question stem or in the statements, there is a x square or a x cube. Right? So from next time onwards, you'll have to understand that there are these intricacies that you'll have to understand. There are some intricate details, right? If you miss out the details, you miss out the most important data given to you. So what is it that I'm trying to find out here? So now that I know x is an integer, I'm trying to find out if I divide x by 5, what is the remainder I'll get? That's what I'm trying to find out. Knowing that x is an integer, I know x square is a perfect square, right? And x square is a perfect square that has a remainder of 4 when divided by 5. So x square can be a 4 or a 9 or a 64 or a 49. So basically squares ending with 4 and 9. So x will be either a 2 or a 3 or a 8 or a 7. And if I try to divide a 2 by 5, my remainder will be 2. If I divide a 3 by 5, my remainder will be 3. Do I get a unique remainder from the first statement? No. My second statement says that x cube has the remainder of 2 when divided by 5. Knowing that x is an integer, I know x cube is a perfect cube. What kind of perfect cubes should I look at? I should look at perfect cubes that give a remainder of 2 when divided by 5, which means I should essentially look at numbers like 27 or 512, which means x will be 3 or 5. Oh, sorry, I'm really very sorry, not 5. This is 8. Now, if you take 3 and divide by 5, the remainder will be 3 itself. If you take 8 and divide by 5, the remainder will be 3. So regardless of the values of x, the remainder is coming out to be 3 in all the cases. So the second statement alone is sufficient. The answer is B. One more stage where students slip up is they say, okay, I'm getting multiple values for x. I might get multiple remainders. So they conclude that statement 2 is insufficient. Don't do that. Go that extra mile. If you are getting 3 and 8, test out the remainders. Don't abandon the problem at a very premature stage, right? Arun, you have to understand that when I plugged in values, subconsciously I've already used the divisibility rule for 5. I know that if a number has to be divisible by 5, it has to have a 0 or a 5 at the end, at the unit digit. And because a number is giving a remainder of 2, right? I know that the perfect cube should have either a 2 at the end or a 7 at the end. So it's just not random number plugging, right? There is a concept behind it, but that has happened subconsciously with me, right? Because because of the fact that I've solved so many problems, certain steps happen subconsciously, right? I hope I answered your question. So what is the learning from this, guys? Learning is anyone who faces trouble in quant crossing a 46 is definitely facing trouble with number theory, right? With number systems. And number systems is not only important because it gives, let's say, 5 or 6 questions. It's also important because it has a bearing on topics like inequalities, rates, combinatorics, geometry, right? So if you want to cross the 47 mark, there is no concession on the fact that you will have to strengthen your concepts in number theory. And you'll also have to deal with, you know, the fact that you cannot miss out on small details, right? Like if x is an integer, x square has to be a perfect square. This is a very small detail, but very often it gets swept under the carpet, and you'll be wondering, okay, if x is an integer, now what, right? Right, people. Next question, please. 1 minute. Determine the same reason for x square. So if you say x square give you a remainder of 4 when divided by 5, it means your perfect square is either ending with a 4 or ending with a 9. Shantanu, that's exactly what I told in one of my previous slides, right? That if you're probably focusing on the methodical approach, that's probably what you have to change, right? That's what I told in my first slide. That if you're thinking too much of the mathematical approach, then it's probably time to change your thought process. Because math alone clearly cannot take you past the line. Aditya, hold on to that question, please. All right, people, that's 1 minute. I know it's a little unfair on my part to expect all of you to solve this lengthier question in 1 minute, but I want to tell you that it can be done. it can be done if you know how to shift from one part of the question to another part of the question. I'll show you how this can be done. The ratio of boys to girls in class A is 3:4. Remember that a ratio question tests your knowledge of multiples. So by telling you that the ratio of boys to girls is 3:4, it's indirectly telling you that in class A, the number of boys is a multiple of 3 and the number of girls is a multiple of 4. If you fail to understand this, you'll end up complicating things. Now, what are we trying to find out? We are trying to find out how many girls are there in class A. We know that the number of girls in class A is a multiple of 4. So clearly the answer cannot be B because 9 is not a multiple of 4. 10 is not a multiple of 4. 11 is not a multiple of 4. So just understanding that the number of girls is a multiple of 4 helped you eliminate 3 options. If you did not do this, then you ended up wasting a lot of time. Now think about this. According to this reasoning that we had, your number of girls can be either a 8 or a 12. Now, if the number of girls is 8, the number of boys should be 6 because it's a ratio of 3:4. The number of girls is 12, the number of boys should be 9 because again a ratio of 3:4. Now let us look at class B. What does class B say? The question says class B has boys and girls in the ratio of 4:5. So let's say 4x and 5x. We know that the number of boys is a multiple of 4 and the number of girls is a multiple of 5. If the number of boys in class B, the number of boys in class B is 1 less than the number of boys in class A. So if I consider there were 6 boys in class A, there would be 5 boys in class B. If there were 9 boys in class A, there would be 8 boys in class B. Now, out of 5 and 8, which one is a multiple of 4? Clearly 8, which means that 5 can be ruled out. If 5 is ruled out, it means that this entire case is wrong, which means that there are 12 girls in class A. So what happens very often in a question like this is people tend to say, okay, 3x, 4x, 4y, 5y, and then say 4y is equal to 3x minus 1, 5y is equal to 4x minus 2. Why do you want to do this? You will eventually end up getting the same answer, but that's coming at the cost of time. When you can solve this question in 1 minute, why do you want to go ahead and take 2 minutes just to prove that you solved it using the mathematical approach? What did you gain? You did not gain an extra point. In fact, you lost time. So people who do not find it difficult to cross that 47 find it hard to deal with word problems, and that's primarily because they don't use simpler methods to solve questions. And also, did you recognize that there were 9 boys and 10 girls in class A? There were 8 boys and 12 girls, 10 girls in class B. Did you recognize that I still have a review process in place? The question says if the 2 classes were combined, the ratio of boys to girls would be 17:22. I still have a way to check my answer. 17 boys, 22 girls, which tells me that my answer is right. So it's not just hit and trial, right? So when you have word problems, you need to know when to shift from one place to another place. Point number 1, you need to deal with the word problems in small chunks. So you saw how I interpreted statement by statement. I did not try to deal with the entire question in one shot. And you need to have strategies like back solving and elimination if you want to save time and effort, right? Without which, just solving the question using variables will just put a very heavy burden on you, right? Mentally, physically. Keep that in mind. All right, people. The next question, please. Okay, people, that's a minute. That's 1 minute. Any answers on this question? So why did I include this question? I included this question because I know that people who find it tough on quant, they don't eliminate enough answer options. I showed that in the last question also, right? I showed how I eliminated 3 answer options just using a very basic concept. And that's one more point I wanted to make here, that if you want to solve a question quickly, especially if you have a must be true question, a could be true question, elimination is the only strategy that you can adopt in a could be true question or must be true question. If you don't eliminate enough answer options, you don't have any other method of solving a question like this. And there's absolutely no way math can help you solve this question. Math can only give you, or it can only take you till a certain stage. Beyond that, you have to use logic. You have to use a lot of common sense, right? And you have to use smart values, without which you cannot solve this question. So what I do on this question is I take W equal to 1. I know this sounds a little counterintuitive. So some of you might be saying, how on earth can someone have one consecutive integer, right? Sorry, Z as 1, not W as 1, Z as 1. You'll have to understand that you should not be, too concerned about the language here. I'm just saying that there's only one integer. So that is the only consecutive integer I have, right? Now, why did I take Z equal to 1? Because I can now say W is the sum of one integer. So W will basically be the integer that I want to take. That's according to my will and wish. Now, if Z equal to 1, Y will be equal to 2. Because remember, the question says Y equal to 2Z. So if Y equal to 2, I'm essentially saying X is the sum of two consecutive integers. Beyond this stage, I'll have to take values. Remember, this is a could be true except question. A could be true except question is a must be false question. What do we do in a must be false question? We try to prove that the options are true. How do we try to prove the options are true? We do that by taking cases. So, what if I take W equal to 3? I take X is equal to 1 plus 2. I'm clearly not violating this. 1 and 2 are two consecutive integers, and X is the sum of these two. So X is equal to 3. So X is equal to W. Proved. I proved it true once. So A cannot be my must be false. Let's take W equal to 1 and X is equal to 1 plus 2. So X would be 3. Is X more than W? Yes. I took one case where I was able to prove that X is more than W. This cannot be must be false. W by Z is an integer. W by Z. What is Z? Z is 1. Anything divided by 1 will always be an integer. So this statement cannot be always false. This statement also cannot be always false. What is left? The only thing left is C, and that has to be my right answer. So you see, by taking smart values, I was able to eliminate 4 options. If I did not take this approach, I would have spent a good 5 minutes on this question. If I did not take Z equal to 1, if I was not overly concerned with the word consecutive, then I would have taken less than 2 minutes. But if I'm concerned too much with certain aspects that don't have a bearing, like a lot of times I see students focused on consecutive. Why can't I have one consecutive integer? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like saying I have one integer, right? So don't focus on the non-essential things. Focus on the essential things. That will help you take the right kind of values, and that will help you eliminate options, right? And once you are eliminating four options, the answer that is left has the option that is left has to be an answer. Don't have any doubts about it. Eliminating options at different stages helps you remain stress-free. That's very important, right? And also remember that GMAT Quant is not a test of your math skills alone. It tests your reasoning and logical skills also. Very often it tests your common sense. Keep that in mind. Okay, people. I think the penultimate question on my list. Let's see what this question has in terms of a learning for all of you. 1 minute. All right, people. So, what do I have on this question as a learning? Um, a lot of people who find it hard to score on Quant, they always try to find the exact answer. They don't estimate, and they don't approximate intelligently, and that affects their time management, right? Because when you always try to find the exact answer, you'll end up going till the very end, which is not required on the GMAT. GMAT doesn't say you have to find the exact answer all the time. In fact, it tells you the contrary. It says wherever possible, use intelligent estimation and approximation techniques, right, to save time. That's how you are making the best use of your resources. The question asks you whether x is more than 0. And people don't realize that this statement gives you a linear equation, right? So in each of the individual statements, you have linear equations. Don't get fooled by the fact that there is a modulus on this side. The more important part is there is a linear expression on this side. And because there's a linear expression, there is always going to be one value, right? It is either going to be a positive value or a negative value. It will not be 0, by the way. So if you plug in 0 in this equation, the equation will not be satisfied. So you can clearly say that x is going to be either a positive value or a negative value. And that is where you have to understand that you don't have to find the value of x. You just have to answer whether it is more than 0 or less than 0. So knowing that you'll get a single positive or negative value, you can always answer this question with a definite yes or a definite no. And that is why I call this question as a 45-second question. That's it. 45 seconds tops. You just require about 45 seconds to realize that on each statement, you get a single value for x, which is either going to be positive or negative. It is not going to be 0. If 0 was there, then it would have created trouble for you because 0 is 0 is not more than 0. But the fact that this equation is given has eliminated the fact that x can be 0. And that's a good thing. That's a blessing in disguise. Because x is not equal to 0, you know that x is either a positive or a negative, and you can answer the question with a yes or no. So when the opportunity presents itself, try your way, try your estimation techniques, try your approximation techniques. Don't go for the exact answer, right? And remember that taking more than 3 minutes on a question doesn't necessarily boost your score. There are false positives, right? So taking extra time on a question to get the right answer is not always on your side. It can work against you. All right. So I think I've already overshot my time. I've taken 10 minutes extra. So I had this challenger question. I think I'll have to skip this to kind of stay within the bounds. So a quick summarizing of what we discussed. Learn the basics of every quant concept thoroughly, especially areas like numbers, algebra, word problems, which ultimately have a bearing on other areas. Practice as many official questions as possible from the official guide, from the quant review, and you can also subscribe to the online questions on mba.com. Use smart methods and strategies. It will help you save time and this will reduce your fatigue, right? On BS questions, leverage the question data and break down the question stem. This will again help you to save time and effort, right? Do not try to consume a lengthy word problem in one shot. Break it into small parts, consume each small part, and then bring all of them into one single whole. Use your estimation and approximation methods to save time. And last but not the least, after you've completed a topic, right, do timed drills by picking, let's say, 10 or 15 questions and trying to solve them in, let's say, 30 minutes, right? What this will do is, it will not only improve your speed, but it'll also end up highlighting certain weak areas that might still exist so that you can go ahead and iron them out, right? Um, so from my end, people, this is all that I have on this session. Uh, I hope the last 1 hour has given you some insights, some valuable insights into what you can do what you can do on the preparation front to help yourself cross that 47-48 barrier. I think I have about 2 or 3 minutes. If there are any questions, I would like to answer them, right? Um, on the chat, I've had a look at some of the questions in the chat. I think I've answered them at different stages. If there are any generic questions, any questions related to your preparation or resources, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box. Ethan? So I do understand that the last few questions were a little harder in terms of difficulty level. They were tricky because uh, you could really not um, approach them only using math. That was the idea. The idea was to show you that there will be questions where math alone will not help you cross the line. And that's why I put it there. So you need to have these different methods of solving different questions. Math alone will not help you on GMAT Quant. Yes, people, any questions for me on this session? So I was talking about the free resources. We'll go ahead and share the free resources in the chat after the session gets over. So you can use the links to avail those free resources. As of now, I think we are giving out our Quant Basics course for free. So you just have to click on the link and you'll get access to our Quant Basics course. It's a very valuable resource for you, especially if you're struggling with certain fundamental aspects of GMAT Quant, right? You'll find this resource very valuable. You'll also get access to our blogs and our YouTube videos, so you can go ahead and utilize them as well. Any questions, people? So if you liked today's session, please go ahead and you know press the like button. If there was something that you thought I did not do well, you're open to critique me, and you can probably press the unlike button also. But don't forget to subscribe to the GMAT Club YouTube live channel. You have a host of benefits if you subscribe to the YouTube live channel. So please go ahead and subscribe to the GMAT Club YouTube live channel. Please also like the video. As a teacher, a student's feedback is the most valuable thing, and we always look forward to having feedback from the students. Um, so I hope this session has enriched your preparation for the GMAT. And since there have been no questions towards the end, I'm assuming that there are not too many things that were unclear over the session. So if there are no other questions, people, then we can wrap up the session here. I'll hope to see you on another similar session in a few weeks' time. Till then, keep solving quant questions, and hope to see you on another session again. Till then, take care, stay safe, and a very good evening to all of you. Bye, guys.